So on today's video, I want to show just a focused example of how interesting things can get when you simply add one track and then duplicate that track, harmonize it maybe 7 steps up, and shift it slightly, and how much more interesting that original track sounds after you do that. So let's take a look at what we have here. We've got a very basic setup with just a double bass, a bass drum, a timpani, and a tuba, and they're all hooked up to the simplest of beats here using the RTS simple beat track. And really all I added was the Perk X using one of the RTS tracks, which simply just turns on Perk X as I press keys on my keyboard, and you can just hear it now. You can see the tuba, the timpani, and the bass drum, and the little swish that we get from Perk X. And the great thing about this is, though, that it's really dynamic, so it depends how hard I press down the key. You get a little bit of roll as it so it's dynamic how you play it live on the keyboard, but it's all automatic because it's hooked up to the RTS, and you can change and add. It's so flexible, it's just crazy. So, but it's done automatically, and the great thing about Perk X is I could have this large swell and the swooshes change any way you want by simply adjusting things here. But this focus really isn't about that. It's just about having a bed of a little bit of a beat and to show you the horns as they come in. So I'm going to turn on the horns, and the main horns here are being played by the midi melody 1. So this RTS is playing the main horns, and since I turned them on now, these main horns 6 here, so 6 players playing the French horn. And that too is dynamic, so you get that built in just in how you play the keys. You can keep it very, very quiet and unassuming, and then just at the right time you can. So that's great. It's a nice little setup for what we're going to do next. So let's just hear that horn again so that we know how it sounds like with that one track. Okay, so you heard the French horn. Now I'm going to turn on the second French horn. And that's just one horn, and it's the same controller. So just to keep this very clear, I'm going to turn off this from the percussion and the bass. And so really, this is the only real RTS that's got some melody to it, notes. Everything else is just percussion and a steady bass drum beat in the background. But you can see here that I've duplicated it and called the second one harmony. So melody 1 and then the harmony of melody 1. So I just duplicated that, and we can take a look at that interface. And so all I literally did was I took the exact same RTS line of notes pattern, which if we scroll down we can see is melody 1 for leads or solo instruments. And if we look here, it's the exact same one. Nothing else is turned on. And just by shifting it on this page, by just 0.1 of a bar, so, or 0.5 of a bar. So I shifted it in time against the original one up here, half a bar. And I transposed it 7 steps up. So in essence, what's happening here is these horn players, which were playing that melody up here, there's going to be one horn player that's going to play higher by 7 steps and just slightly shifted from this pattern up here. And what a huge difference that will make and how much it adds to the whole thing here. So let's listen to that now. You see how much more that adds? And that's literally the same pattern, just shifted and transposed 7 steps up. So it's harmonizing. That one horn is harmonizing with the horns beneath it. And really, you're not having to, bring in another RTS with more notes or a pattern. You're taking that one pattern and making far more interesting. So let's play a few more of the chord progressions that we have available for that now. So see how much more that adds, having that one horn shifted and harmonized up from that. So wanted to show that. And then when you get into some other tracks or chord progressions that are using suspensions or diminished chords, augmented chords, you can get some really nice effects too. So I think that really adds to the original horn track. It really adds a lot to that. Now, what if you wanted to harmonize using something like Divisimate, which also has little mini orchestrations and harmonies built into it? I found it was really quite simple to do, because if we look at Divisimate, and let me just call it up here. It acts in the same way, really. It gives you a bunch of really neat pre-packaged presets of mini orchestrations and harmony. So if we look here in performance, we can see that they just released those 100 new orchestral voices, and it's 100 presets, 5 pages of mini orchestrations, and I've got one of them here that we're looking at. And really all Divisimate needs to play this chord is one note, and that one note will be divided into 3 instruments, and in some cases will be harmonized up or down to create chords and different effects. So it would be very easy now to integrate this little mini orchestration with the bass clarinet and the bassoons, because RTS can just send one note from its system to the Divisimate, and you can use it bottom up or top down, whatever, and you could add voices, and this is like a whole new thing. You can basically orchestrate and harmonize inside a Divisimate, all being played by one of the tracks from RTS, which makes it super simple to come up with really interesting compositions and orchestrations in Divisimate, but add in any instruments from the RTS system and anything from your DAW, and it'll just integrates really nice. So what I did was added these 3 instruments, sent one of the notes to Divisimate, and now when we go back and play, you'll see here the bassoons and the bass clarinet will kick in, and the lower bassoon is harmonized 7 steps up also. So we can control it with our on your keyboard with the foot pedal when you want Divisimate to come in, those instruments. So it makes it really work well. You can bring them in whenever you want. So you could see right here as the little indicators light up more and more how much I brought those woodwinds in. So I wanted to show that in today's video because I think it's working really well, and it adds just so many new dimensions to this system. So we'll see you on the next video.